Well, howdy there, folks, and welcome into today's video. So today we got a little bit of a different type of video, and I almost call it like a lesson type video that I want to explain something that's going on with Palantir stock that I think is very, very important here, and what it means for Palantir's long-term valuation on this company, what it means for the stock price, and many various factors. Okay, so I just got done watching a video from Tom Nash. Tom Nash, I try to watch all Tom Nash's Palantir videos. Very, very interested in I love what Tom Nash has done as far as Palantir's really built into a stock for Tom Nash that's going to be kind of his stake in the ground, right? Meaning if Palantir is hugely successful and goes up a ton, Tom Nash is definitely going to benefit from that. If Palantir doesn't, obviously it will hurt. But I respect the fact that he's really put his stake in the ground when it comes to Palantir, and he's super bullish on the company. He talks about it a ton, right? And so he just put out a video recently, and I just got done watching it, called Palantir is literally the worst company in the world. And in this video, he talks about, basically Ross Gerber had went and said a bunch of stuff about Palantir company and talking about how they're a bad company and things like that, right? And so I kind of want to act as kind of a middleman in this situation between Tom Nash and kind of his views and Ross Gerber and his views, because I think both of these gentlemen have some good points here, but I think there's some things that should be accounted for. And like I said, I've tried to watch all of Tom Nash's Palantir videos he's put out over the past year or so. I don't think I've ever really heard him address this head on, but it's possible I could have missed a video in the past. But I think it's a really important issue that you have to think about if you ever invest in one of these sorts of companies that's caught up into what is this company going to be caught up into. So I hope you guys enjoy this. As always, don't forget to subscribe. So when it comes to Palantir, PLTR, if you were to ask me, am I bullish on the company or bearish on this company over the next 5 years? Bullish without question, right? I mean, this is a company that, if you look at their business model, it's at the cross sections of data and artificial intelligence. I think it's going to be a must at least almost a must use for most big corporations over time. And the best part of the business model is I think it's going to be an incredibly sticky business model. And when I say sticky business model, what that means is if you're a big corporation, mid-sized corporation, whatever, and you start using Palantir, I think it's going to be hard to get off of Palantir and use some other company's product, okay? And so when you look at it from that angle, this company, I think, has many years of strong revenue growth in front of them. I think they're going to build out to a very, very profitable business model over the coming years. And I think there's a chance that this company can be a $100 billion market cap, if not several $100 billion market cap over the coming years, okay? So that's my views on Palantir. On the positive side, right? I think there's kind of two things you got to consider on the stock on the other side, okay? Now, the first one is actually not the biggest problem. We're going to get into the biggest problem here in just a moment. The first one is valuation, right? If you look at this company on any type of short-term metric, it looks overvalued, right? P, forward P, price of sales, all those sorts of things. But you can't really look at companies like that when they're a growth company like a Palantir is, right? So I don't think that's really the biggest risk at all when it comes to a stock like Palantir. I think there's a much bigger risk that Tom Nash and I think everybody that owns a stock, thinking about owning the stock, should consider. And it's the reason I haven't been able to build this into a big position, because I'm like, do I really want to catch myself up into another one of these type of stocks? Because I've been investing in another stock over the past several years that's been caught up into a whole bunch of crap, okay? And I'm going to share that stock with you here today and why this matters and why it matters so much for long-term valuations of companies, okay? So, look at this here. How the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department, and Palantir use data to justify racist policing. All right, that's something. Local law enforcement quiet on relationship with predictive policing company. Since 2016, law enforcement agencies in San Diego have spent millions of dollars on data analytics company known for its predictive policing platform with ties to immigration and intelligence authorities, all while bypassing open discussion. These sorts of headlines, this is not a good look for Palantir. I'm going to tell you why it's going to get a lot worse too coming, okay? Revealed. This is Palantir's top secret user manual for cops. Motherboard obtained a Palantir user manual through a public records request and gives unprecedented insight into how the company logs and tracks individuals by Vice there. Palantir is one of the most significant and secretive, not good, okay, this isn't a good look, okay, and secretive companies in big data analytics. The company acts as information management service for immigrations and customs enforcement, corporations like JP Morgan, and dozens of other local, state, and federal agencies. It's been described by scholars as a secondary surveillance network, since it is extensively catalogs and maps interpersonal relationships between individuals, even those who aren't suspected of a crime. Okay. Now, and we're going to get into the stock that I've been in for many years that gets caught up into a whole bunch of crap. Okay. So when you have headlines like this coming out, and keep in mind, Palantir is still so on the DL compared to what Palantir will be in a few years from now. When you have these sorts of headlines coming out, okay, it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better for a company like Palantir when it comes to stuff. Because what you got to understand is as a company scales its business, as it becomes bigger and bigger, right, and it gets to a bigger market cap, bigger revenues, bigger profitability, everything, more and more folks start to analyze a company and look at what it's doing and try to tear it down. Like anything else in the world, the bigger something gets, right, the more folks try to tear it down, whether that's a person, a corporation, whatever it is, right? And so you have Palantir already starting to deal with all this stuff over the last couple of years, right? All these sorts of articles coming out. Just, on, how this company is, helps. I mean, look at the headline. I mean, it doesn't get worse than this. It doesn't get worse than this if you want to talk about your brand and how it's going to be interpreted, how the LAPD uses and Palantir use data to justify racist policing. Like, those are sorts of headlines that will get worse before they get better, because this company will likely become more and more successful and more folks are going to be looking at it and just waiting to tear this baby down. And I've seen it on message boards over the past couple of weeks on how many people view Palantir and, the views of it out there. Now, the question is, I don't think anybody should look at this and be like, try to debate this, right? Like, well, no, Palantir's not helping, justify racist policing and things like that, right? And they're not, helping these folks as much as you think, blah, blah, blah. Don't ever look at it like that, because that doesn't even matter. All that matters is the narrative around it. The narrative is what matters. And as I say, perception becomes reality. And so if this builds into a bigger snowball, which it will as Palantir gets more and more successful, this will become a huge hurricane cloud around Palantir that distracts the management team away from building the business into, we've got to deal with an onslaught of negative media that's coming. And it's going to be big negative media. There's going to be CNN coming after them. There's going to be all the biggest publications out there are going to end up, in my opinion, likely coming after Palantir over time as the company gets bigger and bigger. And talking about, look at how bad this company is. Look what they're doing over here. And as you deal with that, you have some folks that say, oh, no, they're not that bad. They're helping, right? A matter. And you have other folks say, they're the devil. And they need to be eliminated, and we need to, find a way to make this company, make their life a whole lot harder than it's had to be, right? Where they've kind of been able to operate on the DL in kind of a secretive manner, right? And that's going away for this company. And so this is where you get into a real messy situation. I've been in a stock in the past and currently, right, that I've been in for years. That's the best business model you'll ever find. They're a beast, but Facebook. They've always had this cloud around them, and it's one thing after another. And as they became bigger and bigger and more successful, they had to deal with more and more junk, right? The Cambridge Analytica situation, how they're using data, When this company was a much smaller company, no one ever questioned that, right? Now you got certain groups of individuals that think, Facebook's the devil, right? And they're the reason, society's on the decline or whatever. That's the way some folks think about this, right? Whether that's true or not true, all that matters is in enough people's mind, it is true, right? And so you have a lot of, the reason Facebook, in my opinion, trades at such a ridiculously low valuation compared to what it should trade at, because this company should trade at a forward P of 40 or 50 easily, if not 60, based upon its future growth rates. The reason it trades so low is because a lot of funds and a lot of investors just choose not to be part of Facebook because they know it's constantly caught up into a bunch of crap. And they know They're going to have to answer to their investors who care about social related things, right? And they're going to ask Facebook, they're going to ask the hedge fund or whoever is running the ETF, why you invest in Facebook? They're, this, they're that. They helped this president get elected, blah, 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 right? And so now the same exact thing is going to happen with Palantir, where all of a sudden you're going to have folks saying, hey, why you invest in Palantir? They're a racist company that's helping, police departments, basically, have racist policies and using data just as an overcloak over it, right? You're gonna have to deal with that now. And so when it comes to like me and Palantir, it's like, man, do I really want to build this into a big position? I'm like, their opportunity is big in front of this company, but they're going to get an onslaught of bad press coming over the coming years as the company has more and more success. That's going to be vicious. And I mean vicious. And it holds back the stock price in a way, just like Facebook's been held back. There should be a $600+ stock today. It's not, because it's being held back by all the stuff they always have to go through. And now Palantir is about to go through a whole lot of stuff as this company gets bigger and bigger and more known out there, okay? And so this is something you have to consider if you're investing in a stock like Palantir, is you're going to have to understand there's going to be so much bad press coming for Palantir over the coming years that it's going to be ridiculous. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's going to be so much bad press coming, and you're not going to be able to change the narrative of this company. Like, people are going to believe what people are going to believe, and it's going to happen, okay? And then you have certain funds and folks that can't even invest in a stock like this because they'll start to look at it as, like if you look at certain industries, it's so hard to find, investors for some of these industries. Oil and gas, like people look at that as just like a dirty industry that a lot of folks don't even want to be invested in nowadays. Cigarette companies, like look at the valuation of cigarette, like nobody wants to be part of a cigarette company nowadays, right? If you look at like the private prison industry, right? Like no one wants to be part of those stocks, right? Because they look at those and they're like, hey, that's just bad stuff, right? They look at that as kind of the devil. And then if all of a sudden this becomes the narrative around you, for your company, I mean, that's, it gets ugly really, really fast. And so I think that's something that folks should consider if you're investing in Palantir, you're thinking about investing in Palantir, is just the fact that there's going to be massive negative press coming for Palantir as the company has more and more success. Okay. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed a little video like this, a little learning video where we describe something that's, this isn't something that's usually taught in an investment book or something like that, right? Of having to deal with situations like this. This is not something you usually have to go through. This has nothing to do with financials or income statements or balance sheets or any of that. It has to do with perceptions and whether people will invest in stocks based upon, perceptions that are put out there around it, okay? Much love as always, guys, and have a great day.